Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with episode 7 of Frosty's EU reviews in chronological order. And that brings us to Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. And this is Greg Bear's one and only entry in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. And after having read this book, I'm okay with that. I don't think I could read another Greg Bear book in the Star Wars universe. I did not have a good time reading this book. Now, to be fair, I have never read a Greg Bear book. And from what I have read and understand, he is quite a good science fiction writer. He has won many awards for his writing. He writes hard science fiction, similar to The Martian, where they use real scientific methods and explanations for how the science and the science fiction works. That is not Star Wars. Star Wars is not hard science fiction. And that may just be, my dissatisfaction with the book may just be the fact that his writing style just doesn't complement the Star Wars universe. And that's nothing to slight against Greg Bear. He may have just been an unfortunate choice to write a novel in the Star Wars universe. So let's talk a little bit about the book and what I did and did not like about it. So this book takes place 3 years after The Phantom Menace. We now have a 12-year-old Anakin Skywalker who's having a hard time adjusting to Jedi life and Jedi training. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's still having nightmares. He's still having trauma from being a slave and from being taken away from his mother. And he just doesn't know what to do with himself. Obi Wan also does not know what to do with himself. He does not know how to properly train Anakin. He's a little upset with Qui-Gon. He kind of wishes that Qui-Gon was still there and that Qui-Gon hadn't saddled him with the training of Anakin, and so he's wrestling with that. The Jedi Council also does not know what to do with Anakin because they feel he is all over the place. They feel that he's reckless. He is involved with illegal fight racing on Coruscant. He is building brand new and repairing droids and leaving them all over the Jedi Temple. And the Council just doesn't like that he's cluttering up the temple with his droids. And so they also don't know what to do with themselves. So they figure that the best thing to do for Anakin to help him get back on track is to help him blow off some steam. So they decide to send Obi-Wan and Anakin on a mission. About a year ago, the Jedi heard about this mysterious planet called Zonama Sekot that was supposedly they were building the fastest ships in the galaxy. So the Jedi Council send Vergere with a whole bunch of money to go purchase a ship. She goes to Zonama Sekot and is never heard from again. She disappears. So they send Obi-Wan and Anakin to Zonama Sekot to find out what happened to Anakin. And oh, by the way, here's a pile of money. Maybe you could purchase a ship for us and bring it back. So Anakin and Obi-Wan go off to look for Vergere. And as soon as they land on Zonama Sekot, that is where the plot takes a hard left turn and completely shifts gears. As soon as they land, they stop looking for Vergere. They completely abandon their mission, and they spend most of their time on the planet building their ship, learning how to build the ship, learning about the shipyards, and learning about the planet. It's so bad that Anakin, on multiple occasions, asks Obi-Wan, hey, shouldn't we be looking for Vergere? That's why we were sent out here to begin with, to investigate and find out what's happened to her. And Obi-Wan says, no, now's not the time. We need to investigate this planet. There's mysterious things going on, and we need to find out what's going on here. Yeah, you need to find out what happened to your missing Jedi. That's why you were sent there to begin with. They don't actually ever find out what happens to Vergere. They don't do any investigation. They don't ask anybody. As a matter of fact, the only reason that they know what happened to her is at the end of the book, one of the people on the planet happens to say, oh, you're Jedi? Oh, yeah, by the way, there was a Jedi here who showed up about a year ago, and then she disappeared. She left. We don't know what happened to her. There was virtually no investigation going on, and the plot was just all over the place. There is a subplot also involving Wilhuff Tarkin and Wraith Seinar, who are essentially the main villains of the book. Both of them also know about Zonama Sekot. And Tarkin, as we know, is a little bit power hungry, and he can tell that the government is shifting, and that the winds of change are in the air, and that there's a new order coming down the pike, and he wants to be in the front of that. So he sends Seinar to Zonama Sekot to see if he can get his hands on one of their ships and maybe help subdue the shipyards, and then together they can bring these ships and the shipyards to Palpatine as sort of a present. Well, the problem is neither one of them trust each other, and rightfully so, because Tarkin has sabotaged Seinar's mission. He sends him out there with the explicit purpose to fail. He knows Seinar is going to fail. He set him up to fail. And that way Tarkin can come in when Wraith fails and then swoop in like a hero and pick up all the pieces and actually complete the mission and present everything to Palpatine so that he can get in the Chancellor's good graces. That actually never happens, because when they get there, there is a large battle that ensues eventually over the planet as they try to engage the planet's defenses, and as they try to get their hands on a ship and maybe on the shipyards. And so the planet, we find out and we discover that the planet has giant hyperdrive engines in it. So instead of fighting Seinar and Tarkin's fleet, they just fire up their hyperdrive engines and blast off into the unknown regions. And they disappear. They escape. The planet escapes with its hyperdrive engines. And Tarkin and Seinar have absolutely nothing to bring back to Palpatine because they lost. They lost getting their hands on a ship, and they lost getting their hands on a shipyard. So that was the subplot of the book. Now let's talk a little bit about the characters in this book. I didn't like the characterization of Tarkin. I thought it didn't fit with the other characterizations of Tarkin that we get to hear further down the road. He was too heavy-handed. He was too power-hungry. He was too xenophobic. It just didn't fit with what we knew Tarkin was. I also didn't like the characterization of Anakin. This book includes Anakin's first dark side kill. In the book, he's being chased by a blood carver, an assassin, who's trying to kill him. We're never really told why the assassin is after Anakin. We're just told that he's been hired to assassinate a 12-year-old boy. And in the process, Anakin uses the dark side at the very end to crush the blood carver to death. So we get his first dark side kill, which was completely out of left field. As we know, it's sort of well established in Attack of the Clones that his dark side, his first kill was the Tusken Raiders that have captured his mom. So I think the characterization of Anakin, the pigeonholing of the dark side in Anakin's personality, I think that was too heavy-handed. We know that he's going to become Darth Vader. We know that he has some dark side tendencies. We know that his future is clouded. We don't need to be reminded by having him viciously use the dark side to kill and crush an opponent at the ripe old age of 12. I just thought that was way out of character and way out of left field for Anakin. The plot and the pacing of this book was all over the place. For the most part, this book was a bit of a slog. Not a lot was going on. There was more talking. There was more getting to Zonama Sekot. There was more figuring out how to get there and all of the politicking and behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on. And then there was an obscene amount of chapters dedicated to nothing more than building their ship. And that just really slogged the book down. It really just ground the plot to a dead stop. It wasn't fun to read. It wasn't engaging. I honestly didn't care how this ship was built. I mean, he went from end to end, from beginning to end in the building process of this book. It almost felt like a how-to manual, how this book was built. If this was any other book than a Star Wars book, I might have been okay with it. But because this was a Star Wars book, I just couldn't get into it. And I really didn't care. I didn't care about this ship and the intricate processes of building this ship. I thought he dedicated way too much time to that. This book was only 330 pages long, and a good chunk of the middle was nothing but describing the building of this ship. So the pacing and the plot was all over the place. The shoehorning of the dark side with Anakin and the foreshadowing of the dark side was all over the place. The characterizations of Tarkin and Anakin just didn't hit for me. Now let's talk about Zonama Sekot. This book was written at the same time that the new Jedi Order was being written. So somebody in upper management decided, hey, why don't we make this a prequel story to the new Jedi Order? Let's tie in Zonama Sekot and the Yuuzhan Vong into this book so that we can connect this book all the way to the end, 100 books down the road, to the new Jedi Order. So they did. This is a prequel of sorts. We learn about the history of Zonama Sekot. There's mention of the Yuuzhan Vong in this book, except they're not called the Yuuzhan Vong, they're called the Far Outsiders. And they go ahead and connect all of this, and Vergier, they connect all of this to the new Jedi Order. And quite frankly, it was unnecessary. All the information that you get about the new Jedi Order, and the Vong, and Vergier, and Zonama Sekot, you're going to get in the new Jedi Order, and you're going to get it better. So it was 100% completely unnecessary to connect this book as a prequel to the new Jedi Order. You didn't need it. It's books we're going to cover 100 books down the pike, and you're going to get more and better backstory when we get to it than you did in this book. If they had left that out, it might have been better. But as it was, it just felt shoehorned in, just like Anakin's foreshadowing of the dark side felt shoehorned in. So what's my final recommendation on this book? Well, I told you at the very beginning of this series that the expanded universe, there's a lot in there, and there's a lot of good gems in this series. The expanded universe has a lot of wonderful gems to uncover. They also have a lot of turds to uncover. And this is the first that we've encountered. This is what I am lovingly going to call Frosty's first legendary turd in the expanded universe series. I cannot recommend that you read this book. As a matter of fact, you should just skip it. If you're doing what we're doing, what I'm doing, and reading this in chronological order, and you want to read everything there is to read about the expanded universe, then you're going to want to read this, but just bear in mind that it is a slog, and you're most likely not going to have a fun time reading it. If you just want to read more about the Star Wars expanded universe, I would skip this entirely. There is nothing in here that is so important that you need to read this. It is actually quite forgettable of a book. I've read it in the past and remembered virtually nothing about it. So there's nothing important in this book for you to read. The characterizations are all over the place. The plot and the pacing are all over the place. It's a bit of a slog. There's a lot of shoehorning going in here. And there's really no significant reason for me to recommend that you should read this book. You should just skip it. Save yourself the time and don't read it. Just keep going. You are not missing anything. And as any good turd would be, the best thing you can do with this book is just flush it down and forget that it actually is part of the expanded universe. It was so bad that I gave it a 2 on Goodread. I was going to give it a 1, but I decided to give it a 2, and so far it is my lowest rated Star Wars expanded universe novel, and it is the first to make Frosty's list of legendary turds. So guys, that is my review of Greg Bear's Rogue Planet. Do yourself a favor and just erase it and forget that it actually exists. You're not missing anything, and there's no actual reason to read it. The next book, though, that we are going to be reading and reviewing is our very first Timothy Zahn novel. We are going to be reviewing and reading Outbound Flight, which is his prequel to his Zahn trilogy, the story of the ill-fated and doomed mission of Outbound Flight, which will feed heavily into Heir to the Empire. And I'm really excited to read that and review that. Anytime we get to read and review a Zahn novel, I'm all for it. And this is the first Zahn novel that we're going to read in chronological order, so I am super excited to read that. So guys, there is my review of Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you thought about it. Did you read it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Why did you like it? Why did you like it? Why didn't you like it? And as always, like and subscribe, pass it around, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, share it with the 4 people that actually like this book. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.